This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee on our 450th show, by the way, is one returning guest and one new guest, although neither of them are strangers to the world of podcasting. First, national correspondent for Newsy, Mr. Clayton Sandell.
Hello! Nice to be back.
It is nice to be back. How are you, bud? Yeah.
I'm doing fine. Yeah, we're gearing up at Newsy. I hope everybody checks it out. We're doing a big relaunch in October of the whole network, and everything's changing. So, we're working on some fun stories, and hope everybody kind of checks us out.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a little biased because I'm a big fan of one of the national correspondent for Newsy, Mr. Clayton Sandell. But I love it because I just love the fresh, honest news. Obviously you're awesome. So it's just great to see. It's good to see you and Newsy working together because what a team.
Thank you very much. Very excited.
I bet. That's great. Well, you should be. And it's great. We're happy to have you. And we're also happy to have, this is his first time on Coffee with Kenobi. I've been on his wonderful show, the Hyperion Hub. It is honestly one of the best Disney podcasts out there. You can put that in your podcast feed and you will not be sorry for it. John Alois. John, welcome to Coffee with Kenobi.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'm honored to be on the show. We are huge fans. And like you said, we've had you on our podcast, and Sean Dagenhart and John Redling Schaefer and I host the Hyperion Hub. And you're an inspiration for sure.
Oh, you're very kind. Well, the honor is all mine to have you both on. This is going to be a fun show. This started by the topic is top 5 moments of Star Wars nostalgia from our childhood. So we're all pretty much of the same age bracket, all in our early 20s, naturally.
Yes.
And give or take. Maybe I forgot to carry a 1 or a 2. I don't know. But when Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian Season 2 finale came out recently, when I watched that and I saw the reactions of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, particularly when R2-D2 came into the picture, and hearing Jon Favreau talk about that, and bringing up that nostalgia and remembering how we felt when we first saw Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill in The Mandalorian, it just brought back all the memories and feelings of why I love Star Wars so much, what it means to me. And ultimately, it's because of nostalgia. Star Wars relies heavily on nostalgia, but that's not all it has going for it. It's got the storytelling. It's got the wondrous special effects and the sound that Clayton has done some great work on. And we just love it. And I just thought it would be nice to talk about something that we truly love and just kind of bring back that inner child that had us fall in love with this galaxy far, far away so long ago. Clayton, I have no doubt that you remember the first time you saw Star Wars, and maybe that's going to be in your top 5. So I don't want to give anything away per se, but why don't we start with you? What is number 5 on your list of moments of Star Wars nostalgia from your childhood?
So number 5 is a memory that I might not have actually remembered had I not gone back and transferred some old family movies that I had that I got from my mom after she passed away. But there was one little 8mm film reel that I'd not seen maybe ever, and so I sent it off, had it transferred. And it came back, and it turns out it was Christmas 1977. And you remember Christmas 1977, we didn't have a lot of Star Wars toys yet. But the one thing we did have, and it was, I'm sure it was not even an officially licensed thing, but it was like the red plastic flashlight with the sort of opaque, semi-opaque tube. And it came with 2 little round gels, basically, a red one and a blue one, so you could swap it out. You could put the red gel in there, or the blue. And that was like my first Star Wars present, like, ever. And so looking back on that now, and we could probably. I have that. I transferred it, and it's on YouTube now. If you want to put it in the link or the notes or whatever. But it's like this. It just takes me right back to. You can just see the excitement on my face as the wrapping paper comes off and swinging it around, and the lights go off, and it was just like this magical. Because I'm sure I had played with a regular flashlight before that, but this was like the first, real toy that I ever got that was, this cool weapon that nobody had ever seen before.
And honestly, when you found that footage, that had to feel like the Holy Grail. I mean,
Totally.
who wouldn't want to find something like that?
Oh yeah, totally. Because I don't have a lot of photographs of me with Star Wars stuff as a kid. But that's the one thing that I do have. So yeah, it was kind of a cool little treasure to
That's
uncover.
pretty remarkable. Cool. I think that's wonderful. That is so wonderful. I think, and I don't know about you both. I'm sure you're both the same way, but I make sure to take pictures of Mason with everything Star Warsy I could possibly, because I'm like, maybe someday you'll care about this in the same way that I do.
Yes.
All right, do I have to hold the Star Wars napkin again from this angle? Yes, you do.
Right.
Yeah, film's much cheaper now.
That's true. That's true. It's true. So John, what's your number 5?
So we're going to obviously have some overlap and some similarities. Like you said, we grew up in the same time frames. And, when you think about nostalgia, toys are such a big part of why we love Star Wars. So you're going to hear a few toys on my lists. Number 5 for me, my 7th birthday present from my parents was the Millennium Falcon.
Oh.
And so, and I still have it, by the way, it's on a shelf. And the reason why I still have it is because I destroyed the other large Star Wars present that I got before that, because I was a lot younger at that point, which was the Death Star playset. And I learned, if I want to play with these continually, I have to take care of them. So the Falcon was, just the largest thing that I had up until that point. And it was everything for me. I mean, it wasn't just Star Wars. Han and Chewie sat in that cockpit, but it was also a NASA vehicle. It was, space. It was probably the Enterprise at some point, believe it or not. But definitely had to make my list because I still have it and I still love it.
That's awesome.
That's great. You really can't beat that, though. Yeah, Christmas and Star Wars go together so beautifully. But my number 5 is not Christmas related, but it is related to a promotional. I certainly going to have a lot of toys and toy memories on this as well. But number 5 for me, I wrote 2 words: Burger King. I could have said flame broiled. And you can see them behind people who watch Facebook Live or have ever toured the Coffee with Kenobi studio. No, the Burger King glasses were special. They were very special. Like every for the first 3 films, Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, naturally, one of the promotions was that you could order food from Burger King and you get the glass, and it was filled with Coke and it had like a plastic cover over it now. But it was like the first round was Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and then R2-D2 and C-3PO. And every week you would go, or every week and a half, whenever they ran out, you would go back and you would get the next class. It was enormously incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. I think I was 6-7 years old. But the reason I remember it so well, besides the fact that it's one of my favorite things in my collection, is that every time, and I told the story before, every time we would go through a drive-thru at Burger King, my parents, this was the exact conversation. And my children have done this to me, so it's called karma, ladies and gentlemen. But they would say, "What do you want to eat?" I said, "I want a Star Wars class." "I know you want a Star Wars class, but what do you want to eat?" I said, "I want a Star Wars class." This went on for 45 seconds to a minute, most likely. And I'm surprised my parents ever wanted to go back, but they did. I did get food. I did get sustenance and nourishment, but I also got, more importantly, those glasses. I don't remember the cheeseburgers, all right, but I remember those glasses, and I love them. I still got them. Wouldn't trade them for anything.
That's awesome. That sort of reminds me of, for years and years and years, my uncle would give me at every birthday, Christmas, he would give me those Hamilton collection plates.
Oh,
So maybe I can bring my plates over. I still have them, and we could combine them with your glasses and make a set. There's one. My absolute favorite is the one where it's the Death Star firing on Endor, and it's like the planet, or I'm sorry, Alderaan, and Alderaan is blowing up. And I tweeted that one day, and Pablo Hidalgo was like,
Oh, wow.
try and figure out the perspective on this, because the perspective is like completely weird. Like how they painted this thing is like just such a bizarre angle. But anyway, yeah, we could make a whole dining set.
Those glasses, those glasses were so popular for so many different properties. You had the Muppets, you had Charlie Brown.
Yep.
It only goes to show that Star Wars was going to be pretty popular in that avenue as well, probably.
And the art, I forget the artist, but they did a bunch of posters that are similar to the glasses, but they're not the same. And if you see pictures of them, like just on Google, or sometimes like you can get copies of them on eBay, they're tremendous. I'd say some of the finest Star Wars art you'll ever see, quite honestly. So, all right, so let's go to number 4, Clayton. Where are we at for number 4?
So this is you talk about nostalgia, and part of what I think. All right, so I'm gonna show it. So for people who are not watching, this is the Star Wars storybook. It's sort of the original, the full color photographs with C-3PO and R2-D2 on the front. But one of the things I think I'm sort of nostalgic for, in addition to all of the Star Wars stuff, is just the idea that the way we experienced it is not a way that you could experience it today, because it was pre-internet, it was all these things. So the only way that we had a lot of times, if we weren't seeing the movie in the theater, the way you were reliving it and experiencing it was through like the books. And so this book, was my favorite. It's got all these great photographs. It was the first time that you saw Biggs. Biggs is in the book, and it was like, wait, where's this guy in the movie? He's not in the movie. Biggs is in here. But what's so funny, and forgive me, but part of nostalgia is smells, and the glue that they put in the spine of this book has a certain smell that takes me right back to being 6, 7, 8 years old, because it just has this distinctive smell, and I can still faintly smell it in here. It's sort of like it's faded a little bit over the years, but yeah, this book was just it was the Star Wars that we had when we weren't watching it in the theater before, even before VHS was a popular thing. There you go.
I'm ashamed that I didn't put this on my list. I love this thing too. It's still got they even have my name written on the inside. In case you were unclear who owned it, it was Danny.
Very nice.
Now, Dan's looking at his copy. I can't get to my copy. It's in a closet behind me. I can't do it right now, but I wish as soon as this is done, I'm going to smell that book as well. Now, I had all 3 in one binder, so it must have come out. It must have come out like in '83.
Scholastic had one of those.
That's what I had.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nice. Yep. Do you have the ones for Empire and Jedi too, Clayton?
I have the Jedi one. Oddly enough, I don't have the Empire one, which is my favorite movie. So I gotta get that one.
That's the only one I have all 3 of them. I remember that one really well because I had a lazy eye and I had surgery as a kid. And I remember in the hospital, they said, we're going to have to read the Strengthening Your Eye back. And my parents brought me that.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, pretty cool. That's a great one, Clayton. I love that one. My number 4. No, sorry, John, you're number 4.
Okay. So, I think when we're done with this list, I'm going to come up with about 20 more because I've already thought about, books on tape and the records. And, that's how you relived the films before you had VCRs also. So, all right. So my number 4 is, you're going to think it's kind of high, but there's a reason for it. It's seeing Star Wars for the first time. And the reason why it's only at 4 and not all the way up to number 1 is I don't truly remember the entire experience. I was either 2 or 3. My parents had taken me to the theater. Half Italian, my dad had to take me to see Rocky. So, or anytime, John Travolta was in. on screen we went. But seeing Star Wars, what I remember are the images. I remember the feelings of thinking, is this real? Does this exist somewhere? I was a little bit confused by who the bad guys were and who the good guys were, because Han and Luke are dressed up as stormtroopers, and I was thinking, aren't those the bad guys? So, just trying to figure it all out. But the images that I still remember have stayed with me. So clearly it had an impact, even on that first viewing. I remember the second viewing more when they re-released them either the next summer or the following year. But that first time really probably changed my life in a lot of ways.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that is my number 4 as well. And it is for very similar reasons. Like, I thought, why isn't this my number 1? It's because I was 5 when I saw it. But I remember being there. I remember experiencing it. And this is another story I've told many times as well. But we saw it on TV, and we weren't allowed to see PG movies. And my cousin had told my parents, there's shooting and stuff, but there's no blood. And she must have forgot about the cantina. Hello, thanks, cousin. You scarred me for life. But it's fun. I think the boys will like it. We did, but we went to the theater 5, 6, 7 times. It was always sold out, without fail. We were always disappointed. I remember visibly leaving the theater, trying to kind of pacify myself by saying, "Can I have a quarter? I'll play this video game," because they had video games in the movie theater and blah blah blah. But then eventually, one evening, it was in the summer of 1978. I was on the cusp of turning 6, and we pulled up in this little booth, and my dad rolled down the window and he said, "For Star Wars." I remember him saying that. And I said, "Are we seeing Star Wars?" They said, "Yes, we're going to see it at a drive-in movie theater." I'd never been to a drive-in movie theater. I didn't know what a drive-in movie theater was. But the movie started. Before the movie started, I know I told this on your show, John. There was a 1 minute crude animated feature called Bambi versus Godzilla. And it was this really poor animation of this deer just eating grass for like 25 seconds. And all of a sudden, this big green foot, it looked like a Monty Python, stepped on it, show over. I remember thinking that was weird. And then Star Wars starts, and here we are. And yeah, it definitely changed. It definitely changed all of our lives. It's so impactful. I don't remember every beat of what I thought when I was watching it. How could I? I was 5 years old, and that was a million years ago. But I just remember the lead up and not being disappointed anymore, seeing it under the stars. I mean, I really can't think of anything better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure the conversations we had with our friends, I don't even know how you describe the movie to people at that age,
Mm-hmm. It was neat. Probably something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Clayton, what is your next one?
My number 3. So this goes back to, it had to be, I'm guessing, the summer of 78. I'm not entirely sure when this happened, but there was this group of Star Wars characters that would go around to the shopping malls and make appearances at car dealerships, and so there was a night. I believe it was a night. I hope my memory is not failing me, but it was like in the courtyard of the Riverside Plaza in Riverside, California. They had a stage set up on one side of it, and the entire point was to show up and meet and see in person all these Star Wars characters. So they had like a Darth Vader, they had a Stormtrooper, I think there was a C-3PO, and maybe an R2-D2 or maybe a Chewbacca. I can't remember. There were like 5 or 6 of them, and they basically came out, made an appearance. They played Star Wars music, but it was like the Beatles had come to town. Mm-hmm. The entire courtyard of the mall was filled with people who were screaming and cheering, and of course all these kids. And it was funny because I was 4 when Star Wars came out, so I would have been about 5. And to John's point about is this real? It's like I didn't know this wasn't actually Darth Vader standing up there. Like, you know, it was just like like I said, it was like the equivalent of, seeing a movie, some huge movie star. So yeah, Riverside Plaza. And it's funny, you can go online and Google like Star Wars appearance mall, late 70s, whatever, and people have posted some of their pictures that, of the old T-shirts and stuff. And so yeah, the circa 1978 appearance of in-person Star Wars characters at the Riverside Plaza stuck with me for a very long time.
It's like very much. I mean, it's like 20 years before, but like a precursor to the 501st. I was at an ice skating rink in Louisiana, and I remember a guy walking. He wasn't ice skating as Darth Vader. That would have been interesting, but he was walking around the whole time, and in my mind's eye, he was Darth Vader. He looked real. I was scared of him, but I couldn't keep my eyes off of him.
Right.
Same idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly that, and this was before it had to be an officially licensed thing, because I think this was before anybody was making their own armor and making their own costumes and stuff. So,
Right.
yeah, it was pretty awesome.
I love that. All right, John, your next one.
All right, number 3 for me was seeing The Empire Strikes Back on opening weekend, Memorial Day 1980, in Calumet City, Illinois, where I grew up, home of Jake and Elwood. We saw it at River Oaks, and it was such an out-of-body experience, because I remember pulling up to the theater. My mom took my best friend Joey and I, and the line wrapped around the theater, and it was a huge theater. This was before the days of, theaters in every mall and on every corner. This was our only theater for all, I don't know how many miles in between the other ones, but there were probably 3 or 4 screens showing it. But the fact that the line wrapped around, you immediately got this sunken feeling like, are we going to even see it today? Probably what you experienced, Dan. And we parked, we got in line, and we waited in the rain for 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we went around the building. We had to go get tickets at the box office, and they let us in through an exit because the inside was so full. So just standing out there, and everybody it would come in waves. They were either excited that we were getting closer, or they were bored and they were miserable because we're standing in the rain in May. But then we get in there, and the film starts. And we're in the Hoth scene, and Luke's on a tauntaun, and the projector freezes, and the screen goes black, and the lights come up. I know. And a manager walks in to apologize, and everybody immediately starts booing him. This is South Side Chicago, so we're not always a friendly. But
surprised he didn't get knifed. Yeah.
So he leaves. Movie comes back on, and it's a tremendous experience from that point forward. Thought Vader was lying to Luke, and my buddy and I talked about it all the way home. And eventually, I saw it again with my dad. And back then, everybody talked about that one film, that experience, for months and months. So just thinking back, oh man, what a great experience. I probably didn't truly appreciate what our parents went through to do what they did for us, but it was great.
Man, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was on my list and it got bumped for something else. But the same sort of thing, the one theater in Riverside, California that was showing the movie, I went with my Aunt Dana, and she was older than I was, and we went with a couple of her friends, and stood in line for, I want to say, 3 hours. We were there pretty early, but standing out there, watching the line get bigger and bigger behind us, and I was, and the other thing about that, which I didn't realize until much later, is that I went with her and her friends, who were all girls, older teenage girls, who were all huge Star Wars fans. So I sort of was exposed at an early age to the female fan that some people claim never existed. But
that's awesome. Yeah, I don't remember that growing up. But that's a great perspective.
When Empire came out, I did something very un-Dan-like. I had the novel, and I was sitting outside, and I was reading it before I saw the movie.
Wow.
Which would never, ever happen again. I don't know if I was too close to kryptonite that day. I don't know what the problem was, but I remember sitting outside in our back deck reading, and I was up to the part where I was in Hoth. I was just in the middle of Hoth where the Wampa just attacked Luke. And I remember my mom coming outside saying, "Hey, that movie's in theaters now." And I didn't even know that. I said, "What? It is?" And she said, "Do you want to go see it today?" I'm like, "Yeah." So close book. And a quick honorable mention that I remind me to talk about broccoli in The Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to write that down. Believe me, it makes sense, kids. It makes sense. All right, my next one, my number 3, is the first time I ever got an action figure that was Star Wars. As you mentioned earlier, Clayton, in 1977, you really couldn't get Star Wars toys that were very hard to get because I don't think anyone understood what an avalanche of memorabilia. This is before it was even a twinkle in Steve Sansweet's eye. And so then we had. I remember going before I saw Star Wars because I mentioned we kept trying to see it over and over again. I remember going, it was either to Penny's or Sears. I feel like it was J.C. Penney's. And there was this wall of Kenner figures once they had started coming out. I do remember seeing the box, the early bird box, and saying, let's get this because they'll mail something to me. Because I loved getting mail. Well, who doesn't love getting mail, especially when you're a kid? And I remember my dad saying, but you're just going to get a box. You're not going to want that. So thanks, Pop. But I got, there was all of these figures in 70, and I didn't know what they were. But so my brother got Luke Skywalker and I got C-3PO and I thought it was super cool. First figure I got when my first premiere I went to, I think you know this, Clayton. That's actually when you and I met, but I had that C-3PO in my pocket. I brought him with me just as sort of a reminder that, hey, this is where it all started. And now here I am at a premiere. It was great. I remember watching Logan's Run, and I remember seeing some robotic thing on a trapeze, and I thought that was C-3PO because I hadn't seen the movie yet.
Right.
So it's pretty funny. Leland She gets a big kick out of the story. So it was just fun because that I'm looking at that's where it all started for me, getting that figure, and then later, several weeks later, actually getting to see the movie. It brings back a lot of great memories. Speaking of great memories, we've got so much more to come. When we come back, we'll give you our top 2 favorite moments of Star Wars nostalgia as kids, and maybe a few honorable mentions, including a story about broccoli. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
With travel beginning to open up and Walt Disney World and Disneyland reaching full capacity, this is the time to book your Disney World vacation with MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. Their signature service and expert advice will help clients maximize their vacation, time, and dollar. I use Becky Menken and MEI's incredible services all the time, both for family and for travel for the show, because of their no cost, no obligation quote when you use the service. Plus, they proactively adjust a booking if the rate goes down. Literally, I will wake up one morning and I will get an email from MEI saying that the price went down, and I will get a refund sent to my credit card right away. I don't have to do anything. They help your family enjoy everything Galaxy's Edge and the Disney theme parks and the cruise lines have to offer, can help you plan every detail, and always share invaluable tips. That's for Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or other cruise lines. It doesn't have to be Disney related. They literally can help you plan a vacation anywhere on the planet. Be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel and sign up for a free no obligation quote to any of the Disney theme parks on the planet or any vacation that you have in mind. You'll have the best vacation possible and help out me and Coffee with Kenobi in the process. We are back talking about our top 5 favorite moments of Star Wars nostalgia. It's been fun hearing your guys' stories because it's reminding me of things. I mean, it's kind of cool that we have, obviously we lived in separate parts of the world, or the United States, I should say, but we had those similar things. Star Wars continues to grab us together. Before we finish our list, I want to ask both of you, what is it about Star Wars and nostalgia that just captivates us still after all these years? Clayton, let's start with you.
Oh, I think it instantaneously takes me back to all of the good things about my childhood. And I think that it's funny. I was thinking about it. I don't know if you watched the HBO series Watchmen. Yes. But there was sort of that whole subplot involving the nostalgia pills. I wish there was nostalgia pills for Star Wars related stuff, because I would love to just relive all of that stuff. I would love to go back to the moment where you hear, Darth Vader tell Luke that he's actually his father. I mean, I don't know what it is. I think it's just because it's so tied for me to all these great memories as a kid, both my own and with my friends playing Star Wars, collecting the stuff. Um, yeah, it was just that through line through my childhood that was always just the coolest part of it.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Man, can you imagine the Star Wars nostalgia pills?
Oh man, yeah.
We have those every week on Coffee with Kenobi. John, what about you? What is it about Star Wars and nostalgia that they just work together so beautifully?
I get to relive it. Speaking of nostalgia pills, when my children were growing up, I showed them in the proper order the films. Starting with A New Hope, and seeing that look on their faces after Darth Vader is revealed, and just reliving some of those moments with them. I think I love the idea of nostalgia, especially when it's being nostalgic for something that we're still passionate about. It kind of shows us our foundations and especially when it's something like Star Wars, where we continue to love it today. It's fun to look back and see how it all started. So it's interesting. I'm nostalgic for pretty much everything that I loved as a kid. I still am interested in today, and that goes from baseball to Disney to you name it. So I think that kind of just stays with you, and then you get to pass that along to other generations.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. And for me, it's very similar to what the two of you just so eloquently said. When I was a kid, I was very shy. I was very quiet. But Star Wars just was kind of one of those things that I felt like I belonged to something bigger than me. It just opened up a lot of doors for all of us. But it's just those memories of that joy, Christmas, going to the movies, going to toy stores, seeing commercials, hearing something on the radio. I remember hearing the Imperial March on the radio for a radio trailer and thinking, this is great. Like, oh my gosh, I love that movie. I love that song. Let's go see that movie again, everybody. It's just great. And then when you get to see it with your kids, I remember showing Mason the original Star Wars on New Year's Day when he was like 3 years old or 4 years old. And I'm sure you both have similar stories, but I remember at the end, at least during the big Death Star battle, Mason was standing in front of the TV, jumping up and down the whole time. Like he was chill the whole movie, but he just kept it because he was so excited about it. And I just thought, this is heaven, man. This is heaven. All right. So we're down to top two. That's right. That's right. That's right. We're up to our top 2 ones. I'm looking forward to hearing what you've both got on your list. Clayton, back to you.
So you guys have talked a little bit about toys, and that's what my number 2 is, sort of broadly here, because when I was a kid, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and so I had like some action figures and stuff, but I never had like the really big cool stuff. But in a lot of ways, that didn't matter, because the storytelling foundation and the myth and all of the the great characters, all that stuff was there to sort of spark your imagination. And so I might have had a few figures, but not like the giant playset. I did, John, later get the Death Star playset. But for the most part, I mostly had the smaller stuff. And but I remember distinctly like that not really mattering. And I had we were like replacing a sidewalk or something in our backyard one time. So we had this giant, probably 3 feet by 3 feet cube. It was just a stack of bricks. That's all it was. And so you could sort of take the bricks and move them around and spread them out a little bit and make like corridors and passageways and little rooms and secret passages and all that sort of stuff. And that was like my Star Wars fortress. And I had all characters hidden in all sorts of different places, and you play all sorts of little scenarios and stories out, and all it was a pile of bricks. And and then I remember getting a Tauntaun again for Christmas one year, and I grew up in Southern California. We didn't have any snow. So to me, like a tauntaun became a desert creature.
Yeah.
And so, it was just this ability. The toys were just sort of this way, this on-ramp onto the Star Wars storytelling world that kind of let you tell and come up with your own stories, which I am actually today very, very grateful for that.
I used to cut up cardboard boxes and do what you did
Yeah.
with the bricks,
Yeah.
create rooms and fortresses. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm convinced, growing up in Louisiana, that one of the reasons I love The Empire Strikes Back so much is because I hadn't seen snow, and Hoth blew my mind.
Right.
Blew my mind. Yeah, and then I remember actually getting to play in snow for the first time as like an 11 or 12-year-old kid, and walking through like a snowdrift, picturing Luke Skywalker looking for Ben Kenobi, and yeah, that's great.
I didn't have a lightsaber. My lightsaber was a yellow wiffle ball bat, and that would go out into the snow with me, and we'd get a lot of snow up north, so I would build caves and have those adventures as well.
That's cool. Yeah, see, I thought about that because the only snow we had was in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California, and I had like visions of going up there and digging out huge tunnels that you could walk through.
Love it. We should do a show like this for Indiana Jones too, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
We love nostalgia for that one. Okay. There's a time remaining thing flashing. You can
I see that.
Yeah, don't worry about that. All right, so my number 2 is tied into Return of the Jedi. I remember, I would say a good month before Jedi came out in theaters, I walked into school one day and this kid said, "Look at this." And it was a black Luke Skywalker with a green lightsaber, and he had a brown cloak. I'm like, what is that? What is that? Because I went to Toys R Us. They've got new Star Wars action figures for Return of the Jedi. What? So he had the box, he had the card, and I flipped it over, and I'm seeing Admiral Akbar and Gamorrean Guards and Emperor's Royal Guard, and I don't know who any of these characters are, but I thought they were beautiful. So we went to Toys R Us after school. I said, "Mom, we got to go to Toys R Us." Toys R Us when you're a kid is like Xanadu, baby. Yeah. And then we walked in there, and in my mind's eye, the rows of action figures was probably 10 high. Whether it actually was, probably not. But just I remember seeing it like that, and I remember getting Luke Skywalker. Still, to me, that Luke Return of the Jedi figure is one of the best action figures ever made. But I just thought, and I kept looking at the back and who's Bib Fortuna and all these people, and I couldn't wait to get to know these characters. The fact that there were new Star Wars characters coming, that I was going to see what was going to happen with Han Solo, hopefully, fingers crossed, was just amazing. And then seeing Luke looking like that, I thought, he looks so cool. He's going to be so tough in Return of the Jedi. And he certainly was. He certainly was. That, I will never forget that. That was, every time I see that Luke Skywalker figure, I'm flashback to that when that kid, his name was Aaron Combs. He had the figure. And I haven't talked to Aaron Combs in 35 years, but I remember his name because of that action figure.
Yeah, there was a sense of safety with Luke, seeing him dressed that way. And then obviously in Return of the Jedi, you just felt like all of a sudden now he's gone from this student to, he's like Fonzie, I mean, he's unstoppable. So,
and he could jump a shark and make it cool.
Can I do my number 2 really quick, Dan, before we?
Please. Yeah. Wait, did we? Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know if your timer was going to.
I skipped it. My mistake. Yeah,
that's okay. So my number 2, we're going back to toys, of course. It is my first Star Wars toys, and I got it for my 4th birthday, 1978. C-3PO, who, by the way, has been with me at every Star Wars film that I've been to. He's been in my pocket.
Cool.
I know, it's so crazy.
That's awesome.
I would not admit that on anything but a Star Wars podcast, by the way. C-3PO, R2-D2, and the Land Speeder. And I remember sitting on the kitchen floor next to that giant refrigerator and just playing with these characters, these figures. And I remember distinctly looking up and seeing my dad standing over me and my mom sitting at the kitchen table, both of them grinning from ear to ear. And it must have been like a sense of pride or something that, here, this is kind of a small milestone moment. These are big boy toys. This isn't Fisher Price and stuffed animals, and I never really got to talk to them about that moment again, as far as, did you guys remember that? I certainly did. Clearly it's making my list here, but it's just one of those times. And of course I still have those figures as well. And by the way, the bottoms of all my figures, the way you can tell that they were mine originally was my mom used to paint the bottom of one of the feet with nail polish so that mine wouldn't get lost whenever I was playing with my friends, especially with Joey, who broke all his. So
very smart. That's a great idea.
That is good. I thought you were going to say you wrote Andy on each foot or something. That's great. All right. Well, thank you for chiming in. I was so caught up in our stories. I almost missed you for two. So thank you for bringing that up. Clayton, your top one. I can't wait to hear what it is.
It's an easy one. It was seeing Star Wars for the first time. I do remember going with, it was actually my aunt and uncle that took me, and same theater that we saw Empire a few years later, because we only had the one theater. But yeah, I distinctly remember sitting there between them before the movie started, and having them sort of explain, all right, who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. The stormtroopers are bad guys, even though they're in white, but they're with Darth Vader, who's dressed in black. So don't be confused. So they were sort of giving me the cliff notes as before the movie started. So yeah, that for me was the top. That's literally where it all began. I had no idea what Star Wars was until that moment.
Didn't get much better than that.
Yeah. How lucky are kids today? I mean, they have not only what we grew up with, but there was like a 20-year gap, and that's all we had. We're a couple books maybe after and some extra figures, but seeing Star Wars the first time, I don't know how you top that, especially when you remember it so well.
That's great. All right, John, your top one.
All right, my top, opening night of Return of the Jedi. Once again, going to the same theater that I saw the others in Cal City. It was completely decked out. It looked like a big movie premiere. There was a red carpet. There were walk around characters, probably not as nice as the ones that you had in Riverside, but but these it was just so cool. What stood out more than anything else is they painted the street out in front of the theater with scenes from the previous films. So there was Luke and Obi-Wan, there was Yoda, there was Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fighting each other with a little star in between, the from the lightsabers. And those paintings stayed on the street for years until they paved over it again. So it was always a remembrance of being there that night. And I remember just sitting there with my parents and my dad, thinking that the Death Star, because we were seeing the brand new Death Star, they were showing old scenes from other movies to get us caught up for this film. And saying, no, this is a different Death Star, and, just being that little nerdy kid. But, and then walking out of there after the Yub Yub song and feeling like nobody is ever going to top this series as long as I live. It was such a complete feeling. And I think I saw it one more time in the theaters before all the re-releases. But just that opening night, that red carpet in the street, magnificent. Cal City never looked better.
I love that they painted that in the street. That's very cool. And that it stuck around. That's great.
So I'm starting to think, John, that when I was making my list that you were looking over my shoulder and making yours. Because my number one is the first day that I saw Return of the Jedi. It was the first time I'd seen a movie the first day that it came out. My mom actually, my brother and I were going to separate schools, so it was my last day, and my brother actually, they took him out of school so that we could see it. So we were there. We went there several hours early. My mom had heard that there was going to be people lined up because it was very exciting. The very, very first showing in 1983 was sold out. So I saw the second showing. I mean, I didn't really care that much. While we were standing in line waiting, I went across the street to B. Dalton Books, and the storybook of the Return of the Jedi, the one you just showed the Star Wars one a little bit ago, Clayton. I bought that one, but all I did was look at the front page. I didn't want anything to be spoiled. I had finally evolved from my pre-read the novel situation, and there was just such a feeling of euphoria and excitement and energy that was so palpable. Right before we got into the theater, someone drove by. And they rolled down the window and they yelled at us, "Hey, space cadets!" And I thought, and everyone, some people were laughing, some people seemed annoyed. And I said to my mom, "What does that mean? Why am I supposed to? What is that supposed to mean?" And she said, "I think they're just making fun of us because they think we're really crazy about space movies or something." I said, "Well, maybe." So we went into the theater. And every time, Return of the Jedi is perfect because every time a character would walk out, everyone erupted and clapped and cheered for a good 30 to 45 seconds. Every single time you see Luke and R2 clap, when Leia is revealed, Chewbacca, everything. And it was just, I have goosebumps on my goosebumps just thinking about, and I think that's where I fell in love with the idea of seeing a movie in a big screen. Because it became an event. It became like a sporting event or some sort of moment of epic, grandiose entertainment where everyone is a part of the experience. And it absolutely floored me. And then I saw Return of the Jedi several times, but nothing quite matched that. That's why whenever I go to a movie and when it's done and people clap, I just smile and think about that day in New Orleans when I saw Return of the Jedi the first day it came out. Because that, to me, is what movies are all about. We experience it together collectively. We get scared, we get excited, we laugh, we cry, and we experience something so beautiful that it has to be done in a giant, massive theater.
Nice. Well said.
I forgot about that. We had some cheering in our theater as well. And that was something that was probably the first time I experienced that as well. I remember, I think Batman '89 that happened. And, nothing like what I experienced during Endgame, but Jedi was equally as passionate. It was filled with fans. Thankfully, I thought you were going to say somebody rode by and spoiled the ending somehow. Darth Vader's good. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone did that to you, Clayton?
Somebody did that to me. Yeah. So
what?
My Aaron was a guy named Chris Martinez who came up to me on the playground in third grade, and he had seen Return of the Jedi, and he told me that Luke and Leia were brother and sister, and I could have killed him right there by the tetherball court.
And you would have been in your rights.
Yeah, I would have been within my rights, and I think that's why I'm so sort of violently anti-spoiler nowadays, because that's just It's not cool, man. It's not cool.
My in-laws,
it's the worst.
In-laws saw Force Awakens, and as they were walking in, innocently, a little child said, "Yeah, I can't believe Han Solo died." But it's one of those things. What are you going to do at that point?
Yeah,
that's a lot of counseling involved.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
As we near the end of the show today, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation talk about this week's show, or just talk about some Star Wars. We have a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends as well as catch up with longtime friends along the way. I also want to thank all of the new and longtime members of the CWK Alliance and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement. If you want to join the CWK Alliance, go to www.cwkalliance.com and sign up today. Not only will you help out Coffee with Kenobi, but you also get access to CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour-Over hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. Feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zaire, MRZEHR, or on Instagram at DanZareCWK. There are also a lot more ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. Check us out on Pinterest or subscribe to our Coffee with Kenobi YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, you can find Facebook Live video, different interviews throughout the years, highlights of video coverage throughout the Coffee with Kenobi history, and the audio podcast itself. You can order my book, The Star Wars Book, which I co-wrote with Lucasfilm's Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, Walmart, or anywhere books are sold. You can also find my writing on Coffee with Kenobi's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I am an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute occasionally to articles about Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. If you are considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired so you can take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our Coffee with Kenobi sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet you want to go on your vacation. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the Force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word, and I can't thank you enough for your help, for your support, and your friendship. I love so much being a part of this wonderful Star Wars community, and I can't thank you enough for all that you do for me and Coffee with Kenobi.
Well, you know what? I mean, it doesn't get much better than reliving our Star Wars nostalgia. Please share with us your top 5 moments of Star Wars nostalgia in the CWK Cafe or our Facebook group. On social media, certainly you can interact with these two fine gentlemen who are at the top of their games, as I knew you both would. It was just an absolute pleasure to have you on again. Clayton and John, you on for the first time. You're both, of course, welcome back anytime. Clayton, please let everybody know all about Newsy and where they can find you and your Star Wars opinions on social media.
Yes. Newsy.com is kind of going through a transformation right now, and we'll be relaunching in October 1st. So yeah, for now you can check it out online, Newsy.com, but it's also on all of your streaming apps, the Rokus, the Apple TVs, all of that stuff, wherever you get your streaming content. Newsy is there, and I'm on Twitter at Clayton_Sandell.
Wonderful. And John, what about you? Let everybody know about you and about the Hyperion Hub and all the great things you're doing over there in that wonderful Disney podcast.
Thank you so much. The Hyperion Hub, your meeting place for all things Disney. If you guys have been to Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, and you know when you get to the end of the street, there's a hub there. That's where we meet. We meet there every week. It is, like I said, Sean and John and I, and we've had the pleasure of speaking with authors and other podcasters and former Imagineers who worked with Walt, producers. You can find us on all the streaming platforms as well, all of the podcast platforms. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're at Hub Hyperion. And thank you so much. Always great to talk to space cadets, fellow space cadets.
That's right. Proudly so.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.